Hi. I wanted to do another video. Yeah, I know. I talk a lot about Seattle, and a lot of people get frustrated with some of my videos. I don't get a lot of people subscribing, which is cool. I'm just getting started. I got to find my niche. Not really for sure exactly what kind of video group I want to do. Some people do food reviews, which is fun for them, and it's fine. They found something that makes them, makes a lot of people enjoy their videos. Me, I like talking about things that are important to me. And hopefully the things that are important to me are also important to some of the people that watch my videos. Now, just recently, Seattle got a major snow. I mean, it was like massive. Usually, if you're looking at the map, and here's Seattle, usually in the wintertime, you get a lot of air coming in this way, which brings in warmer current, or warmer air. So whenever you get a lot of precipitation, like snow and rain, it's a little bit warmer. So if it does snow, it's more slushy than it is snowy. This time you got snow. I mean, you got winds coming in from the Arctic blast, which is up around coming through Canada, which was swooped around. It kind of went down to the south and then swooped over to the east coast. Yes, swooped down from the south, north, swooped down from the north into the south and then over to the east, which brought in a lot of snow, which you guys don't usually have a lot of, and it kind of shut down the city, which is kind of coincidental because there's a lot of people that have been talking about the Seattle freeze, and they talk about how they feel like people aren't very nice in Seattle. They've got a cold shoulder toward people. When I lived in Seattle, I didn't really notice that, but I lived in Seattle back in the 90s, so things were a whole lot different. You didn't have all these tech giants that moved in and just took over and stomped all over the city, like the Jolly Green Giant. But now, when people say the Seattle freeze, I guess they can say it and actually mean it. But they say within this next week, the temperatures are supposed to be up around the 70s, which means that a lot of that snow is going to melt. If there is any snow still left, it's going to melt. I don't know what the weather is going to be like after that, going further into the springtime. But getting back to the Seattle freeze, when I lived in Seattle, I had an apartment up in Capitol Hill. And it was a nice one-bedroom apartment. And I used to walk down Pike Place from the hill, Capitol Hill. I used to walk all the way down to the Pike Place Market, the farmers market. I enjoyed that. The people then seemed really nice, but it didn't have a lot of transplants. I used that word the other day with a friend of mine who said she had moved to Minneapolis, where I'm currently at, where she moved to Minneapolis from Virginia. And I said, "Oh, you're a transplant." She goes, "No, I'm not a transplant. I don't like that word transplant." Transplant is actually what it is. You've transplanted yourself from one area to the next. A lot of people decided to move here. They didn't think of the residents that were already here. They just muscled their way in. Kind of like you have a buffet restaurant and you got people at the buffet table and they're getting their food, and then you got somebody from outside that just weasels their way in and moves their body in, and before you know it, they pushed everybody out of the way and they've taken all of the crayfish. So these tech jobs would have been nice in theory because it would have offered the residents that were already in Seattle a really nice way to up their station in life, but that didn't happen. people that moved to Seattle destroyed all of that. And I'm going to say it the way I see it. The residents that were already in Seattle weren't allowed to get the jobs that opened up there because other people swooped in from other states. Before they even got to Seattle, they put their applications in online when they found out that a job was opening up. So the people that were here that found out about the job were too late because somebody from another state swooped in under the radar and took and kind of outbid them for that job. And then once they were okayed to get that job, they moved to Seattle hoping they would find an apartment or a house. Now, upon doing that, that opened up the door for the real estate market to start gouging people for rent, gouging people for house prices. They knew that all these people were going to need a place to live, and they saw dollar signs in their eyes. They were mesmerized by the green. And upon doing that, they caused the housing market to go up, which in turn caused everybody else that actually used to live in Seattle to suffer. The ones that were already there, living in Seattle, that had created a life, they started to suffer. Their quality of life started to go downhill. Stores and restaurants and businesses assumed that because you were making more money, that you could afford to pay more for the items they were selling. Like a few years back, the beef industry decided to up the price of their beef because they said that there was not as much beef, that they had to raise their price because the cost of gas went up. No, the beef decided to raise the cost of beef because they were tired of being the low man on the totem pole. They used the cost of gas going up as an excuse to raise the cost of beef. Farmers no longer wanted to get so-and-so a pound. They wanted to get maybe $3 or $4 a pound, and the store selling the beef wanted to get $6 or $7 a pound for ground beef. Okay, upon doing that, the poultry and the pork industry was supposed to take the load off. They were supposed to be the ones that, if you couldn't afford beef, you could afford chicken, you could afford turkey, or you could afford pork. Well, that wasn't the case. When the pork industry and the poultry industry saw that the cost of beef went up and that they were still selling their beef and that people weren't boycotting the industry to lower the prices of beef, the pork and the poultry industry decided to raise their prices too. They wanted to get in on it. So it's a dog-eat-dog, never-ending, one after the other kind of thing. So here you have people moving into Seattle, and you've got people gouging for prices, and you've got people that are charging more money because they assume people are making more money. Yes, the ones that have moved there and gotten the tech jobs are making more money. The ones that were already there that are working at the same job they've had for 20, 30, 40 years, the ones that are making minimum wage and the ones that are working 40 hours a week, the ones that are disabled making less than $10,000 a year, those people aren't making more money. They're not making more money. So the people that assume that Seattle's got more money are only dealing with the ones that are working the tech jobs, the Amazon jobs, the Google jobs, the Facebook jobs, the Microsoft jobs that are making $30, $40, $50, $60 an hour or whatever it is you guys make, that are making between 80 and 100 grand a year for a single person. The cost of living is high there, and they say, oh, we're booming we're making more money than we can imagine. But the ones that are stuck on this side of the fence, the ones that are stuck on this side of the fence ain't making very much money. So just because you can afford to pay $10 for a pound of hamburger doesn't mean that Aunt Margaret, who's on a fixed income, making less than $1,000 a month on disability because her husband passed away and she's unable to work and she collects a pension, that doesn't mean that she can afford to pay that $10, but she has to buy it because she needs hamburger. And when she buys it, the store assumes that she can afford it. People have confused paying for something and being able to afford to pay with something. They've confused that. Just because you buy something, that doesn't mean that you can afford to buy it. Affording to buy it is when you pay, say, Rolex. You buy a Rolex watch for, say, $20,000. If you were to take that $20,000 and buy that Rolex, and if you can afford to buy that Rolex, that would be like saying you dropped $20,000 out of your pocket and you're never ever going to miss it. Because you got so much money that you could lose $20,000 and not think anything about it. Or you've got so much money that you could get laid off from your job and not work for a year, and it's not going to hurt you to be off for that year. That's being able to afford something. Just because you can buy it doesn't mean you can afford it. Poor people go to McDonald's and get a hamburger. Thank God for the dollar menu. Of course, McDonald's is probably the crappiest burger joint you can get. But thank God for the dollar menu, because a lot of people couldn't survive without that dollar menu. Seattle, it's been a while since I've been there. I plan on going back in June for my birthday on a visit. I'm going to be taking a lot of photos and some video of the area. I'm going to be meeting with the city council in talks with ideas for solving the homeless problem. Also working on the low-income housing shortage. I've got a lot of good ideas that I want to bring up to the city council. I've been in talks with them about it before, but I think if I go there in person and talk with them personally and show them my ideas, they'd be able to get on board. But back again to the Seattle Freeze, it's because the transplants, yep, you guys are causing it, you know. Back in the 90s, you didn't feel that. You didn't feel that cold shoulder. You know, you could go almost anywhere, and people were nice and talkative, and they'd say hello. I'd walk by, and I'd see somebody, and I'd say, hey, how you doing, neighbor? And they'd be like, oh, doing great, how are you? And we'd sit there and chat for a minute, and we'd go on about our business, and I'd say, yeah, have a good day. And they'd say that same thing back to me. Now, it's like people are so hustle and bustle for a couple of reasons, but one, I think, predominantly is that the transplants that have moved to Seattle, Seattle's not their home. Seattle is just a dollar. And I think that anybody that moves there might be moving there for the wrong reasons. Now, there's a couple of guys that are on YouTube that do these YouTube channels that are transplants from other places to Seattle. And one person that I spoke to, and I've been writing comments on the page that he opens up, and I've been asking one question. What was the real reason that you moved to Seattle? Why did you move to Seattle? And I'm curious about that from anybody. Why did you move to Seattle? A lot of people say, well, you know, you're in Minneapolis, so why do you care? Well, because that's where my heart's at, is in Seattle. I may live in Minneapolis, but my home will always be Seattle. I did something stupid when I was younger, and it caused me to move. I'm older now, and as soon as I can get a chance to go back to Seattle and live there, I would really love to do that. But the cost of living's got to come down, and the transplants have to be stopped. Eventually, your garden can't take any more vegetables. It's full. And Seattle has to say, no, we're full. We can't take any more people, and Seattle can't handle it. But the real estate developers aren't going to stop, because they're not going to say that, because they're making money hand over fist. The property owners and the landlords aren't going to stop, and they're not going to say, no, sorry, we can't take any more new people into Seattle. They're not going to stop, because they're making moolah. And the city council is not going to stop it. The present city council will not stop people from moving to Seattle, because they're somehow getting something out of it. I don't know exactly what it is, but they're getting something out of it. So in an upcoming video, I plan on discussing my ideas for fixing the cost of living problem, fixing the rent problem. I've got an idea for fixing the rent. Yes, and also fixing the homeless problem. Those are 3 issues I'd like to tackle in my next video. Anyway, I'm trying the best I can to keep these short, because people complain that my videos are too long. If I've said anything that you like, leave a comment underneath. If I've said something that sparks interest in you and you have an idea for something I can talk about, leave a comment underneath the video. If you don't think my videos are great and you have an idea to make them better, leave a comment underneath. It's all about dialogue. It's all about getting together and talking about stuff and making America better than it is now. Making Seattle better than it is now. Making other states in the Union better than they are now. Because let's face it, man, America has a lot of potential. It really does. So anyway, if you're going to do me a thumbs down, at least be kind enough to explain to me why you did the thumbs down. I'm not going to be mad at you. If you think the video was crap, please just say, hey, your videos are crap, man. You need to give it up. Leave it in the comments. Every little thing helps. Like them, don't like them, just don't sit on the fence. Have a good one, man. This has been All Things Considered, because I consider all things.